Hello, fellow travelers. Welcome to the story part of Jazz and Stories. I am Dr. Richard Hector, your guide. This is episode 1, the beginning of Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale. The story is a reinterpretation or reimagining of a character from the folklore of Trinidad. I appreciate your company. In this episode, we set the location and culture. Then, we meet the first antagonist. Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale, Chapter 1, Soucouyant and the Badger. As bats flew out of the chenet tree, hunting for their evening meal of insects, 4 young men were sitting on the side of a culvert, reminiscing about how they acquired their nicknames as boys growing up in the area. The sun had already slipped below the horizon of the Caribbean Sea, and the sky was slowly turning from gray to black. The young men barely noticed the passing day, as they were enjoying the wandering conversation topics, as they did most evenings. A young woman came walking down the lane with a box balanced on her head. She was in a younger cohort than the men. Her given name was Sandra. As she went by, she greeted them. "Good night, gentlemen." "Good night, Sandra." "How you doing?" said one of the young men. "Okay, just going home," she responded in a pleasant tone. "How your father?" So, but getting better. "So you all lime in?" She paused and put the box gently on the ground. She stood up and looked directly at him. The golden sunlight burnished her skin to luminous bronze. She got her almond-shaped eyes from her mom, who was Chinese, and her stature from her dad, who was of African descent. Even without makeup, she was strikingly beautiful. "Just liming, you know how it is. We like to hang out and chat," he responded. "Okay then," she said, as she stooped and picked up the box. The ease of the movement suggested it wasn't very heavy. However, balancing it on her head was more convenient. She settled it on her head and continued down the hill. "Tell your father we say hello," he said as she moved off. "Okay, I will," she said and kept walking. They watched her for a few moments before returning to their conversation. The darkness of the night erased all shards of twilight, and the lone street light above the culvert seemed forlorn against the trees that encroached on the clearing. A sudden rustling of leaves drew their attention. The rustling was followed by a distinct baff. They guessed correctly that it was made by a mango falling through the leaves and landing on the damp earth under the tree. One of them ventured, "Well, that is a mango for some children to find tomorrow." His nickname was Irons. "Bats or batchak probably eat through half already," responded a burly youth who sat just a little farther from the others. The dynamic showed he wanted to maintain his distinction from the others. They all chuckled. "Flats, you always look for the bad side of things," I encountered. "Things, people, all the same. All bad. Me too," Flats responded. "The bats from the chenet tree might find it first," Ian speculated. "Nah, they won't go down to the ground. They will bite mango only when the mango on the branch," said another young man. "Hey, what is another name for chenet? I was in town and I hear a woman call them quinep. A friend of mine who come from Puerto Rico called them canapes. Mr. Harry called them limoncillo. You know he used to live in Venezuela. A partner at work calls them Bajan Aki." They all laughed at the name. Irons ventured, "Well, since they have Jamaican Aki, we could call it Barbadian Aki," he continued. "But since Barbadians go by Bajans, I figure Bajan Aki is as good a name as Barbadian Naki." They chuckled again. "That one fruit has so many nicknames. Like we do, eh?" said Irons. "Well, we were talking about how you got your nicknames. This is a lime, not a mango." How come you were called Irons? The speaker was slim and neatly dressed. He had an olive complexion and curly light brown hair. His name was Kelvin, but his nickname was Fish. You know, I am captain of the engine room. I'm the best iron man around. So it's only natural. Oh, Gom, you could really lie when you're ready, boy. A different young man interrupted. Kelvin, let me tell you the truth. Irons wanted to play lead tenor pan, but when they put him on tenor, he couldn't learn a single passage, much less a whole song. They moved him to guitar pan, cellos, even bass. He couldn't play. That was going to be the end of his steel band career. If it wasn't for my partner Dunstan, who gave him a try in the engine room, he would be a supporter instead of a player. Irons, Fish tried to interrupt. Don't interrupt me, I'm not finished, said Irons. I'll let you finish, but just let me say this. I am the best Iron Man in the band. I'm done. You could say your piece now. That's true. You are the best Iron. That's true. You are the best on Iron. I'll give you that. Remember we used to call you Iron Man before your handle became Irons, Fish elaborated. Now let me finish. I like eating fish heads, so they call me Fish Head, and it got shortened to Fish. I still love eating fish head. You could fry them, you could stew them, you could put them in soup, in broth, any way you cook them. Bring them for me. But not raw, interjected Irons. I never even try to eat raw fish. I eat Wilkes raw, but not fish, said Fish. What about you, Flats? How did you get your nickname? Kelvin asked the most heavily muscled member of the group. Flats laughed and pointed to his hairstyle without speaking. He has always used that hairstyle. His nickname used to be Flathead, but it got shortened to what it is now, Flats. Fish continued regaling them with the history. Oh, he's strong too, since he was little. I mean a boy. He was never little. He could do 50 push-ups when we little fellows were getting ready for common entrance exam. He was the first one of us to ever do 100 push-ups straight. I could still do 100 push-ups, Flat boasted, but he trailed off without talking about his other physical abilities. Fish did not jump right back into his speech. He gave space for Flats to boast, but Flats was quiet, and the pause became long and uncomfortable. He could do a bunch of push-ups too. We thought he'd go into sports and travel away, where they pay sportsmen, Fish continued. Instead, he started behaving badly, selling ganja and other foolishness. Irons interrupted Fish. Boy, you don't have to go there. Folks end up in casualty with stitches for talking about Flats as you talking now, warned Irons. I wouldn't do anything. We go back too far, said Flats. Flats, you know I'm still your partner. I don't say anything behind your back, and I defend your name, said Fish. I know. Words get back to me, said Flats. Why do you do that? Kelvin asked Fish. Defend him? He's my friend, and I hold out hope that he can get back on track one of these days. Who knows what the future holds? He might stop selling bad business and start selling good business. Tonight, Flats was not selling. His conscience was pricking him because he had committed an act that was unsavory even for him. The leaves rustled again, like an animal was in the bush coming towards them. The limers looked, but no dog walked out. They watched a bit longer and noticed the night was very still. A drifting cloud blocked out the faint moonlight. The night became noticeably darker. They found it unnaturally still. Irons had chastised Flats, decided he had limed enough for the evening. Fellas, I think I diving out Irons said as he dismounted from the wall of the culvert. I have to travel up to Grandy for work in the morning. He smoothed and dusted off the seat of his pants. Okay, Irons, said Kelvin. I think I'll ride out too. The wifey in one of her moods. He dusted off the seat of his pants and stood up.